Hey everyone, and welcome to the Vivobarefoot Health Broadcast. My name is Danny Clark, and I'm the Performance Director for MovNat. Welcome to my homestead, where I'm going to take you through a natural movement practice that's specifically aimed at helping you restore your foot mobility. Today, you're going to ideally use some sort of a beam of some kind. This could be a simple 2x4, anything that you can balance on. You'll also need some kind of a bolster or a block, especially if you struggle with some of the deeper ranges of motion, such as kneeling. This can be a really helpful tool to help you work down there in a progressive and safe way. Be sure to check out Vivobarefoot's YouTube channel, where you're going to find other great movement and specifically foot health related shows and broadcasts. For now, let's go ahead and get started on our practice today. In this practice, we will be working through 12 different natural movements that I've specifically chosen to work on your foot mobility. At MovNat, we consider mobility to be where flexibility meets control and coordination. For your first time moving through this practice, don't worry so much about perfect alignment. Just try to complete each movement task the best you can, and your feet will start improving right away. With more practice, you'll be able to tune into the more subtle positional cues to make your feet function even better. For many of the movements, I'll show you 2 variations. Pick one and complete the repetitions indicated. Okay, let's get started. We're going to start with 4 different kneeling transitions. Variation A will include bolsters, and variation B will be without bolsters and will include a backward reach. You're going to complete 8 repetitions, or 4 per side, depending on which variation you're doing. The bolsters are really helpful if you tend to have tight knees. It allows you to get into the front of your foot without having to get too deeply into your knees. You can always work toward no bolsters after some more practice. The idea of the kneeling position is to be able to sit all the way back, even between your feet, and eventually even get into a deep backward reach. This is going to really stretch out the top of your foot and the top of your ankle. Ideally, the feet are also going to be pointed straight behind you, but that's something that you can work toward with a little bit more time and practice. After you've completed 8 repetitions total, you're going to switch to your next movement. Next one's going to be the tall kneel to flex foot kneel. Again, either with bolsters or without bolsters and a backward reach. Each time you sit down into the kneeling position to the flex foot kneel, just settle for a second before coming out of it into the tall kneel. The flex foot kneel puts your toes into deep flexion, really stretches them out and opens them up so they can prepare you for other movements that require deep toe flexion. These can be pretty uncomfortable if you're not used to this position, so just work slowly, don't go into pain, and be really mindful of the sensations in your body. Ideally, again, your feet are going to be aligned so that your ankles aren't splayed out or pressing together. We want everything to be in straight lines. Again, 4 repetitions per side, or 8 total, and we'll move on to the next movement. Movement number 3 is the kneel to deep half kneel to forward reach. So there's a little bit more of a transition here. So you can practice it with a bolster and do 4 reps per side, or without a bolster. With the bolster, you're going to lift your foot up enough to be able to get into a deep half kneel and then just reach forward. Alternate sides. Really sink forward into that reach, and make sure your knee stays nice and stacked over your foot. It should be pressing forward to get a deep stretch into the back of your Achilles tendon where your leg meets your ankle. Make sure you're breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth, nice and relaxed. The transition without bolsters involves a lot more foot mobility. So you'll see how I shift weight to one side, turn my foot, and then open the knee and reach forward. I'll show you a couple different angles so you can really practice that transition. Really good for getting the different ranges of motion of your foot. We're really forcing your foot to move through a lot of different ranges of motion. If you start to feel crampy at any time, just try to still do the movement, but breathe through it. Avoid the cramp as much as possible. This is one of my favorite foot mobility drills. Our next movement is the flex foot kneel to deep knee bend to stand. So we're linking 3 movements together, either with bolsters or without bolsters. With supports allows you to make the transitions a little bit more easily and also not go so deeply into your knees. We still want to try to keep the feet and the knees aligned. You should have just a little bit of space between your feet and your knees. Try to make your transitions slowly. 2 seconds up for each movement, 2 seconds down for each movement. Breathe, stay steady, stay tuned into the sensations of your body. I'm going to do 8 total repetitions. In the unsupported version, you're going to have to really lean back. You're going to have to really use the deep flexion of your toes to help you make that transition from your base of support being in your knees and feet to just in your feet. Your toes are going to help guide you because as they push into the ground, they're going to help lift your knees. This is a really dynamic movement. Again, another really, really great one for foot health. We're really applying the range of motion that we gain through the flex foot kneel through a dynamic range of motion. Coordination and control. Next, we're going to do some single leg balancing. We're going to do it for 1 minute per side. For this movement, you want to try to align your foot so that if you think about 3 points of contact on your foot, your heel, the pad of your big toe, and also the outside of your foot near your smaller toes, if they form a triangle, you want all 3 points of support on there to be able to help balance you most effectively. Your foot's going to work really hard as you swing your other leg around, forcing your toes and your whole foot to engage. Excellent stability drill for the foot. You're going to do 1 minute on one side, and then you can switch feet. Okay, go ahead and switch sides. Think about not only reaching the foot in different directions, but actually like you're trying to reach towards something while you're balancing. So reaching with your hand, both hands, whether it's your right or your left. You can swing your leg around. Try to maintain steady 4-second inhales, 4-second exhales. Try to minimize the tension in your body. If you're really trying to swing around your arms, you're using your arms to try to compensate for your lack of foot, knee, and hip stability. So really try to use your feet to stabilize. Make them work. Trying to rebuild your strength from the ground up, starting with those feet. Excellent. Next movement is the forward and backward balanced walk. We're going to do this for 1 minute, just going forward and backward. This is a great foot mobility drill because it forces your feet to be in nice alignment on your narrow surface. You learn how to feel with your foot as you reach backward, align your ankle with your foot, and shift your body weight. Ideally, we're maintaining breath. We're working on our vestibular system. You feel free to look down, but try not to look down with your whole head. You can just use your gaze and keep your arms relaxed. Again, the more relaxed your arms are, the harder your feet are going to have to work to maintain your stability. If you have to step off occasionally, no worries. Just reposition yourself and keep walking forward and backward. Slow and smooth so you can really feel the movement. No rush. After a minute, you'll work on to your next movement, which is the balanced side shuffle. For this movement, you want the ball of your foot on your surface of support, which is your beam. You want your heels to be slightly elevated over the pad or the ball of your foot. This is going to allow your feet to dynamically stabilize by lowering and raising your heels really quickly and in a way that allows you to really work on the control of your entire foot. Ideally, we want to try to avoid splaying the foot to the side too much. Try to keep your feet pointed straight ahead. Try to maintain a soft bend in your knees and relaxed arms. You can even play with sort of elevating your heels just a little bit and dropping your heels, really to feel your feet engage through their whole range of motion as they stabilize. You're going to work here for a minute. You may find yourself doing some counterbalancing with your upper body, and that's fine, but ideally your feet are doing all the work here. Next movement is the balanced split squat walk. Now we're going to combine the forward and backward walking with some deep squatting, a split squat. This is going to make your feet work really hard. What you want to do is each time you step, you want to shift weight into your back foot. Just like that flexed foot kneel or the deep knee bend, you're shifting weight into the back foot so that all your weight, your hips, sit on top of your foot. Your front foot is grounded while your back heel is elevated. Imagine if you were just on a balanced surface and you needed to crouch down and grab something. You want to make sure that the torso isn't pitching forward, that you're as upright and stable as possible. Just keep going forward and backward, small steps. So one foot steps right in front of the other or right behind the front foot. Next movement is a nice challenging movement called the cross squat get up. You can do it with either bolsters or no bolsters. It's really important to really dorsiflex your feet. You don't want your ankles or feet to collapse as you shift weight into your feet. The bolsters make this movement much more approachable because for a lot of people, their feet are either and ankles are a little bit weak or their hips just don't allow them to get deeply into their feet. That transition can be very tough. Make sure after every couple reps, you change which ankle is in front of you. If you're working unsupported, again, the key is to make that transition from weight on the hips to weight on the feet. You want your legs to be scissored at about 45-degree angles. You want to make sure your feet are just a little bit apart. And you're not shifting weight into one foot. You want to feel both feet equally pressing into the ground. Again, this is going to work the strength of your feet, especially on the outside edges, make you really much more resistant to rolling your ankles. And your ankles are still stabilizing in this position. Next is going to be the foot hand crawl. So we're going to practice this for 30 seconds. You want your knees just about an inch or two off the ground. Your opposite limbs are moving as you go forward and backward. Feel free to drop your knees and work into what we call a knee hand crawl if needed. The idea here is to work in that flexed foot position dynamically. So you're not just holding, now you're really engaging your feet, pushing forward, working them through a lot of different little ranges of motion. This is a great drill to work on uphill and downhill surfaces. Next movement is going to be jump landings, really working the elasticity and eccentric strength of your foot. Start with just a few foot elevators first, just going up and down, making sure your ankles aren't coming together. Again, we want to think about that triangle of your feet, keeping your everything pointed forward. And then you can work into 8 repetitions of the jump landing. A small little hop, catch yourself so your heels don't crash into the ground, and then lower yourself down gently. Just as if you took a big jump, maybe off a rock or a different surface, and you want to be able to catch yourself with your feet and then your knees. Showing you from the side so you can really see how hard my feet have to work to do this movement. Strive to just lower your heels to softly kiss the ground. Next movement is your deep knee bend walk. You're going to have 2 variations, either off of a 2x4 or your beam or on it, either one. We're going to do it for a total of 1 minute, either variation, or you could switch halfway through and do both variations. So here you're working your feet really dynamically by going a lot of different directions. Forward, side to side. You're going to even turn a little bit. We're kind of integrating all the different movements you did, especially in these flex foot kneeling positions. You're going to feel your feet really burn after this, and it's going to be a great stimulation to get your feet stronger and stronger. Try to keep your arms as relaxed as possible, stay as upright as possible. Working on the balance surface and the narrow surface is really going to test your ability to stabilize on top of work your feet dynamically. Another really great movement for foot stability. Just making it through the interval is a great start. The more this becomes less of a challenge, you'll be able to make more movements and you'll be able to really pay attention to the alignment of your feet, which will start to feel intuitive. The more you practice, the more foot alignment becomes not something that you need to be told what it is. You'll feel it because it'll make the movement a lot more stable, efficient, and easy. There was a time when foot health wasn't something we had to work on. It was just an extension of our daily lives. May we honor the forces of nature that design the magnificent forms that are our feet. May we rebuild strength so we can participate in nature once again and carry its lessons into our lives.